So because I grew up in a very pro-choice household, it was, my mom and my grandma and myself pretty much for a good portion of my childhood. And I was told that having a choice was important and it was good, and that if something were to ever happen, having the ability to have an abortion was important. And, my grandmother worked for Planned Parenthood. And so eventually that became my goal. My dream was to follow in her footsteps and to also work for Planned Parenthood because we felt like they were helping people. And when Tyler and I found out we were pregnant again, shortly after our first son was born, instead of it being a joyful time, we immediately thought, how do we fix this problem? And everything that I had ever heard about having a choice and that this was available, and that was just at the forefront of my mind. And it wasn't something I wanted to do. It wasn't something Tyler wanted to do, but we knew that it was available. And in that moment, all of the reasons why we couldn't have another baby, those were the things that were right there facing us. We didn't have any financial support. We didn't have, any emotional or physical support. We had just moved. Tyler had just changed jobs. And now looking back, we had all of those things. We didn't have to be millionaires to have another baby. We did have support. But when you're in those situations, you can't see out. And that's what abortion facilities hope for. They hope that you can't see out. And they're going to be there to say, you're right, you can't afford another baby. You're right, you don't have support. This will fix your problems and you'll feel better. And when you leave, everything will go back to normal. And that's not how it works at all. But when you're in that place, that's what you need to hear, or you want to hear. You certainly need to hear something different, but you want to feel justified in your decision because you can't think of any other way out. And so, they say that it's safe. They say that it's a quick procedure and then you'll be done. And that's not the case either. Immediately for me, I knew that as soon as it was over, I was missing someone. And it was a complete shift from what I had been told my whole life and what I thought I believed. I was, the person who said, if you don't like abortion, don't have one. My body, my choice, the whole thing. I mean, every statement in the book. And immediately after, it was, what have I done? I wish I could go back. And just an immense heavy feeling of guilt and shame and mourning that I didn't feel like I should be feeling because I had been told that everything should be better and back to normal. And so because of that, there were lots of years of depression and anxiety, eating disorders, and suicidal thoughts. My husband Tyler and I, we fought all the time because we weren't talking. We had a lot of pent up anger at each other for allowing this to happen, and we didn't know who to blame. And so we fought a lot, and we talked about divorce a lot. And neither one of us was really able to be the parents we wanted to be, or the spouse that we needed and wanted to be. And it was a downward spiral for sure. A lot of times when you're hiding something, you have so much shame and guilt. And I didn't want to talk to Tyler about it. And I certainly didn't want to talk to anyone else about this abortion. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what anybody would say to me because I had been hearing everything from everybody else saying, well, on one side, I was a bad person for doing this, that how could I have gone through with this abortion? And on the other side, I was hearing, no, you should have done this, that this is your right. And this is, and so either way, I didn't feel like I was allowed to be upset about it. And I wasn't allowed to have any sort of negative feeling about it because I had to justify my choice. And so going through our CIA and knowing that I would have to say something to somebody was very, very intimidating and very scary. And that is truly when I thought I would be kicked out, because I didn't know anything else other than surely I was destined for hell for doing what I did. And so when I did speak to Father Jeff Walker, he was the only other person I had ever, other than Tyler, he was the first person I had talked to about this. And that was scary. It was really scary because not only was he another person other than my husband, but he was a priest. And I thought for sure, he would say, no, the Catholic Church doesn't. Obviously you sinned. And I'm sorry, but you're out. So, he was a true representation of, I believe, of our faith. He said exactly what I needed to hear in that moment. And it just so happened to be what I needed to hear. He said what he should have said because we are accepting and God is merciful and he is loving and forgiving. And that's what he got across to me. Immediately knowing that I wasn't being kicked out, that I wasn't being judged, or no one was angry with me. No one was upset with me. It made a big deal. It was a big deal. Having this experience in confession really solidified to me that feeling of God is loving. And it sounds so basic and so simple, and it sounds like we should all know it. But for so many people, we have experienced things and done things that we feel like we're testing that. Because like any parent, there comes a point where, we do something and you make your parents really mad. And so we're all waiting for that to happen. And I think that that's where I was coming from at the beginning of my journey, where I felt truly like God was just punishing people for doing things that were wrong. That there was a list of rules, and if you broke those rules, you'd be punished. And I feel like, over the course of my journey, it slowly lessened that feeling. I truly began to know who God is. And then when the abortion happened, I felt like I was testing that. Okay, up until now, I thought, maybe he is a little less, he's not going to punish me as much and he's more loving. And then all of a sudden this happens and okay, now he's back to, he's going to punish me. And so being able to be in the confessional and talk about this and to receive that love and to be in that mercy and that forgiveness, to hear those words that I am forgiven, it really, it changed my heart. It softened me. And it made me realize that we love a God who is merciful and loving and caring of us. And we are human and we're going to make mistakes. And we know people who are going to make mistakes. But our job is to love like God loves and to give mercy and forgiveness. And if we do that, we experience the grace that we can just, I can't even explain. It's not as complicated as we all think. And it certainly isn't as complicated as I thought. To live a life where we glorify God by everything we do, It sounds like a tall order, and sometimes it is, but our job is to love, and we receive love. We receive that forgiveness and that mercy, and it's a freeing feeling to know that we can always go back to God. We can always ask for forgiveness, and He will be merciful.